The Minnesota Timberwolves are on a three-way tie right now for fourth in the Western Conference and 2.5 back for third, with the Lakers pulling ahead a little on their hot streak. But Minnesota is coming off a big win in Boston, taking down one of the NBA's best without their best player Anthony Edwards in the lineup. And it's really just like struck my weird feelings about this Wolves team as a contender as a whole, because if you catch this team on the wrong night, you may think that they can lose in the first round. And then there's games you'll catch this team and they'll look like they should be in contention to represent the Western Conference come June. Minnesota right now statistically is the 10th best team in the league in net rating and basically top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating, hovering at 11th right now in offensive rating, but they're just an odd elite basketball team. First things first, those point guard issues that they've had over the last few seasons have seemed to, like, I guess you could say, died down a little bit, especially since the Ayo Dosunmu trade, and especially with the recent hot stretch of play from Bones Highland, who's been averaging 14 points per game since March 10th. And now maybe those issues pop back up come playoff time, but it is the perfect time to get this production from your bench guards, and it's exactly what they need. Obviously, as I mentioned before, I'm not full believer in their guard play come playoff time, but we'll see. It's a good start, right? But the next area that I really want to talk about with this team is the whole starting lineup debate that I've seen in recent weeks with Wolves fans, which is like the main discussion, I guess, about Julius Randle, Naz Reid. Some people have mentioned Rudy Gobert, but I guess Rudy Gobert is just too important to this team's defense to even consider, even consider a benching, and he just gets paid too much. So I'm not even going to talk about that. I mainly want to talk about this whole like Randle Naz Reid thing because it's funny. It's just a little funny to me. But from a basketball standpoint, I understand why people are complaining. So far, the normal starting five of Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, Randall, and Rudy Gobert is clearly not an elite fit. And they've played a bunch of possessions together so far this season. And the Randall conversations are funny in particular because I sort of have an expertise in this field with Randall's time in New York. The man has talent. It's an undeniable topic. But on some nights, he can look like an all NBA guy. And then there's certain things that he just doesn't do. And there's certain traits that he has that will make you question if he could be a big time contributor on a true title contender. Whether it's the defensive inconsistencies or it's just the pure brain farts that he'll have on the floor, it could be painful to watch at times. I understand. But at the same time, you kind of have to keep him in his role because at the end of the day, he is one of their top two guys when it comes to just being a shot creator. Plus, benching him could be like potentially detrimental from a mental aspect for Randall, which sounds soft, but if he ain't fully on board, this team is spiraling. That's how important he is to this team's success, and that's a big reason why a lot of fans of this team get pissed off at him when he isn't producing, which, once again, I have experience with. There's also fans who aren't like fully in love with Dante DiVincenzo, which I also understand. Although my experience watching Dante was like nearly flawless as a Knick, and there's a reason why everybody was so hurt when he got moved, but so far with the Wolves, he's been like kind of inconsistent. He hasn't been like that same consistent sniper that he was on the Knicks. And defensively, he kind of is who he is. Like, yeah, he can be pesky at times on the ball, but there's also times where like he's just not it. He's just not on his A game. He'll gamble a ton, and if he's not gambling and he's not like getting the job done on that front, he can get lost out there, and it could be tough. But he is who he is at this point. He's a solid role player. I understand Wolves fans probably wanted more or expected more, especially with the last season he had in New York. But that is who he is. He's the guy that's gonna get up a bunch of threes, and the rest of his game, like if you're expecting him to be this like 3 level scorer off the bench, it's not happening. It's just he is who he is at this point. But the true question for this Wolves team is will they be able to be like consistent enough offensively versus the elite defenses to make a run to the finals? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? It's about can you beat OKC in a 7 game series? Can you beat San Antonio in a 7 game series? And I personally have my concerns as much as I love Anthony Edwards' game and believe in him as a lead guy. I think the inconsistencies that this team has shown, whether it's they're being in the bottom half of the league in turnovers per game as a squad, which you can't do, especially versus those teams. And I guess the positive is, hey, look, they have sped it up. They have went out there and they've picked up the pace. I think they're top 10 in pace this season, where in the most recent years they've been like in the bottom half of the league, which is great, especially when you have an athletic monster like Anthony Edwards. You would expect this team to be more in that, like, playing fast side of things. And that can also just cause more havoc against these good defensive teams. You get them out of position and, you take advantage of those situations. If you're going to go against a full half court defense with OKC and San Antonio every possession, it's going to be rough. So I like that they're picking up the pace. But there's just certain things. There's certain things where it's like there's the basic conversation: is Julius Randle really a top two option on a title contender? Last season in the playoffs, he was pretty solid. I guess you could say it was definitely his best playoff run as an NBA player. And but there's still concerns. Like I said, the things that he does that are bad are bad. They can be detrimental to you at times. And then around Anthony Edwards, is there enough? Like Jaden McDaniels, in a way, has kind of become like their Mikal Bridges, but a better version. Even though they both average around the same points, I think Wolves fans kind of want to see Jaden McDaniels take this leap as like a true third option go to guy, or maybe he can like leap over Randall and become it's Anthony Edwards and McDaniels type of team, but he hasn't really shown that yet. And who knows if he ever will show that, like to a consistent degree. But the rest of this team is it's just they are who they are. I know I've said that like 3 times, but they are who they are at this point. Like they have guys, but I just think offensively there's enough concerns for me to believe that, look, I think they can make a run to the finals, but is it likely? Probably not. Is there a world where they lose in the first round if they play the Lakers? Yeah, completely. I mean, I made a video about the Lakers where I kind of like dissed them with LeBron on the floor, and ever since that day, the Lakers have looked really good. I mean, that's just the way things are. I think they would beat a Houston. Denver, they seem to like, well, they beat Denver in 2024, but I think they beat Denver. I think they would. I think Denver's defense is a little bit concerning right now, or it has been concerning all season. I think Minnesota is the more complete team, even though they don't have the best player in that series. I think they'd win. But if they play a Lakers, it could be rough. Like it depends on who they get in the first round. But after that, it's really about San Antonio and OKC. And like I said, the question is, can you beat those teams in a 7 game series with the guys that you have? I have my doubts, and I guess it's one of those things where, look, we'll have to watch and find out whether or not they can finally break through in the West with this core group, or they're probably going to have to, go to the drawing board and make some tweaks in the summer and potentially, they weren't involved in the whole Giannis situation. I think Giannis with Minnesota would be a great chance to take if you're Minnesota, even though Giannis has these little injury issues that could be a little concerning. It's a swing you have to take because Giannis and Anthony Edwards would be an insane pairing. And, on the flip side, maybe Julius Randle balls, maybe the whole team just clicks and offensively they're going and defensively they're a really good team and they make that run. I mean, they've been to back-to-back conference finals for a reason. So, it's definitely in their DNA that, they can make a run for real, but are they going to be able to put the pieces together to knock off the best of the best? That's the real question. Anyways, that's going to do it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been the checkup, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.